British Airways in the UK. Same thing.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All members are present. Tonight, we will pass minutes for March 17th, April 7th, and April 14th. We're going to table the 24th of March and the 31st of March. So, March 17th, does everyone have those minutes?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
I didn't abstain from that vote on the 21,000, right?
I think that was, well, we have to.
Not that it matters that
A
much.
motion
but-
and a second, then we can discuss it.
Okay.
Is there a
I
second?
made a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Who did?
I have no idea.
You did?
I
Did
think
someone?
it was Tom Stevenson.
Oh.
I don't think that was right.
Well, somebody did, okay. All right, I'll make note of that. Thank you, guys.
That was for the grant?
Oh, yeah, the one Lisa wants for the accounting.
I didn't think
Was it
anybody-
because it was
Sorry,
sent in
no
late?
one
I
abstained.
don't know. Okay, no one did?
I don't think
Oh,
anybody
good,
abstained.
okay.
Any other discussion on those minutes, the March 17th?
Make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, I got my back
Greg
to you.
abstains. The minutes of
Who
April
abstains?
I did.
Great.
7th.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So,
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Greg abstained.
Okay.
April 14th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. All right, the minutes of 3:24 and 3:31 will be tabled until our next meeting.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Treasurer's report.
Okay, I don't have a lot today, but we did have our first meeting of the committee to select new auditors. We met yesterday. We wanted to set the process that we're going to use. Since that time, Julie and I have exchanged questions common questions to ask auditors, so we've got that in pretty good shape. And Carl has set up our interviews already with the 3 candidates for May the 4th.
Did you get that email, Dave?
I did, thank you. I didn't get a chance to reply.
Well, it's exactly 10:30, 11:15, and 12.
Did you copy me?
3 candidates? Yes.
Because I do reminders to them.
It's not for the board, it's
Oh,
not.
just for the 3 guys?
And beyond that, I had given you the treasurer's report for the month 2 weeks ago. You didn't ask any questions, but you didn't take the time because of the budget process. But if you have questions now, I'd be glad to answer them.
Does anyone have questions on the treasurer's report from 3 weeks ago?
Okay.
You'll have another one shortly anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
next week, next 2 weeks. Does anyone have any questions for Bob? Is that it? All right, thank you. Selectmen's report?
So this, thank you. This is an item I brought up at 10 o'clock a couple weeks ago, and I remember just Greg rolling his eyes.
Yeah, you got the blank stare.
Yeah, rightfully so, rightfully so. So Bob can also explain some of this. Basically, these are the issuance costs from the preserve bond. FYI, that is probably going to close. We're not wiring tomorrow.
Okay.
We are probably going to wire funds within 3 or 4 days, I'd imagine. I mean, it's just amazing, amazing how long it's dragged on.
What was have you done the rate?
Have we done what?
What was the rate for?
We bonded, that was 2.94.
Yeah.
2.94. And you know, well, I won't get into that, but just as a side note, in this year's budget, Bob ran some numbers for me. Without that preserve bond, the budget is a .07. It's basically a flat budget. With it, it's .23 after some of the work that's been done here. And getting off topic a little bit, just to give you a heads up, there were appeals of assessments that have been done. You can appeal your property values every year, basically. You have a period of time. And we went through some commercial appeals. It wouldn't surprise me if Norm gets Bob a new grand list soon, like this week, the end of this week. And that'll go into, the projection, should there be a positive vote on the budget on May 12th, you'll get that. Right now, we're estimating .23. It could be .26 because we lose some revenue here along the way. Does that make sense? Okay. So a couple of meetings ago, we indicated that there's about $78,000 in issuance costs, but they break out into certain categories. And now that you're fresh, and it's not 10 o'clock. So the authorization was for $3 million. Let's see, said funds. So 78,000. There's a bond premium because Dave, we went through this once before with bond premium. We actually received money back of $10,000. I'm going to use approximate numbers of $10,000 as a bond premium. So we needed $68,000. About $10,000 of that has already been collected in taxes, right? Because River Sound Development owns the property. They paid their taxes through June 30th of this year. If they don't own the property now, they get money back from today through June 30th. That's like a real estate closing. That's about $10,000. We've all agreed that it should be as of April 1, that the adjustment was going to be made because we never knew what day it was going to close. So then you're down to about $58,000. And Bob had suggested identify 2 accounts, and I'll let Bob explain the accounts, from which we'll take about $59,000, 46 from one account and 12,000 from another account. And Bob, why don't you talk about those accounts?
Okay, do you mind if I back up just
Not
a
at
little
all.
bit and
Not at all.
divide this into
Not at
2
all.
pieces? First of all, the auditors always say, authorize a project over and above exactly how much you're gonna spend on the total project. Well, when we went out for the bond authorization, all we authorized was $3 million, okay? And we didn't want to put the issuance costs in the bond, because then we would have been paying for them for 20 years, right? So all we're asking is that you up the authorization from $3 million to $3,078,000, just to cover the additional bond issuance costs and closing costs. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, all right, now where did we get all these funds to send out the wire coming up? And where did we get the funds to do the bond issuance costs, okay? And he's saying we have a couple of places. Number one, the bond proceeds, including the premium, were like $3,010,000. Then we had excess taxes paid of about $10,000, so we have that to use. And we, some time ago, maybe 8 years ago, set aside 2 accounts with capital reserves when we were closing out completed capital projects. Okay? They happened to be sitting in account 369 and 368. But those are monies that do not ever need to be used for other purposes. And so we recommend that you use those capital reserves to get the additional money you need to cover the whole $3,078,000. And that's all there is to it.
So doesn't the taxes, $9,756, doesn't that increase the cost? Because that goes back to,
But that's what we're doing. We're getting money to send by wire, okay? Well, part of this money is the closing costs, essentially. And we're just
Yeah.
taking the money out of the taxes we've already gotten and making it part of what we send.
Why did you ever agree to an April 1st closing date? I mean, the date is the date. Isn't the taxes about $120,000 a year on that property?
About 120,000.
So that's $10,000 a month. So if we're not gonna close until,
That was, because,
I never heard of such a thing.
yeah, well, I think because we anticipated closing 2 weeks ago and.
Yeah, but it is what it
River
is.
Sound, Brad, I understand, I hear you, I agree with you. But River Sound, wanted their money 3 months ago. And they said, you know, at some point, we're gonna agree on a closing date of April 1st. So, that's what it came from,
Well, we wanted the land 3 months ago also.
yeah, so.
I mean, they all both go hand in hand. I just never heard about agreed upon closing date
So-
other than the real date.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're closing today, as an example, it's 2/3 of a month, it would have been about $6,700 the town's losing in tax money. I just don't know why they get that edge.
Carl, who owns the land right now?
River Sound Development.
And that is the group out of New Haven?
No,
No.
that's TPL.
Yeah.
Okay, River Sound is the original, one of the owners
They're a successor owner to
of Lehman Brothers?
Tim Taylor, Lehman Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was the holdup for the closing?
it's just been, the conservation easement, it's been, the state, having Attorney General review, the state identifying the funds from which they're gonna pay, it's been, a myriad of events and, just a lot of moving parts. A lot of moving parts. And then the surveyor, Dave Stein, who apparently is a wonderful surveyor who's retiring, 3 weeks ago came up with a bill for $40,000. And TPL said, will you split the bill with us? And I'm like, no. I said, we're done. We have no more money for this transaction. But it was work that he had done that he forgot to bill for, and yeah, crazy stuff. And but we're not. TPL is paying him that money, the encroachments, or a lot of encroachments on this property that had to be worked out. Encroachments that are allowed to stay on the property have to go into title policy. So Commonwealth Title had to write the title policy a certain way, and there was a lot of stuff. It just wasn't a simple land transaction.
Do you have
I
a,
was amazed, the title policy was 114 pages long.
do you have a copy of the HUD?
I have a copy of the settlement statement in my office. Yeah.
Can we see it?
You can see it, Brad. I can show you, there's two of them. There's one for the Bocum Road property, and there's one for this. The money on this is $3 million, well, I forget what it is exactly,
8,000.
$3.8 million.
so what is the closing date?
April 1st.
Well,
But it hasn't happened yet.
it has not happened.
But what is the date that it's actually gonna happen?
Today's Tuesday, it may happen this week. We may wire, we are on 48-hour notice to wire.
3 million plus the 78.
Well, yeah, 3 million.
Well, what we wire is just 3
Yeah.
million plus the closing costs.
We have our own issuance costs to our lawyer and bond financial advisor.
I'm ready to send the wire.
Yeah.
Let me just ask a question, because, you know, when you see ICWPCA, I get concerned. What is that money in the WPCA, what was it there for to start with? And it says capital, I don't understand, it's there, it's sitting there.
It was,
And it just bothers me that you set it up for that, and now we're just taking it, it's like it's free money. I don't get it.
About 8 years ago, I guess it was, we were closing out projects that were finished, okay? And these were monies that were left over from the project costs. And that we decided that we would put them in an account that could be used to capitalize interest costs until we were ready to start paying back the Clean Water Fund. But it turns out we didn't need to do that. The agreement we now have with the state means that we don't have to pay that delay in interest
Because we
costs.
started paying on time.
Right. And so that is money that's there and always has been there for use in paying bond payments.
Mike Pace was concerned that we may not start paying the bonds
Exactly.
back on time, and prudently, he had put this money aside.
That's right.
And I remember, I was chairman of the Board of Finance, and as it turns out, we're paying on time.
Right. And this fund, although it says WPCA in its title, has never been used for anything, including WPCA stuff.
Why didn't we call it something else?
Well, we should.
It could
Well,
have
we
been.
should now, okay?
You know, Barry, there are more than a few accounts that probably could have different titles on them.
Well, we had a sewer avoidance account, I remember.
Well, we have a sewer, we still have a sewer.
That's for $1
avoidance.
million, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's the 210 fund.
So is
yes.
that a fund you can go in like this one and take money out, or is it gonna be held for
That's-
some other reason?
No, that's our working capital for the WPCA. That's when we do our projects under the WPCA program. That's how they're paid, and then we send the bills to the Clean Water Fund, and they refund them.
Yeah.
That's just our working capital.
See, that's where that money, I think, should have been to start with. It was something like that, rather than sitting down here with that title on it. I
It
mean,
was sitting there by itself. Well, the mistake we made was putting a title on it.
and as soon as I see that, you know where I'm coming from.
Right.
So Carl, how can you have a HUD not be an accurate date? I don't know how you do that legally.
You can agree to a closing date. I've done that 100 times. You agree that, that the settlements, you agree to April 1 as the closing date, even though it might close on April 20th because someone delayed along the way. And the seller says, you know what, I'll agree to let it go to the end of April, except I want April 1 as the date for retroactivity on taxes. Happens all the time, actually. It does.
Technically, we were supposed to close more like January, weren't we? Okay,
Well, I mean, that was, look,
I'm not critical.
no, I know you're not, and along those lines, I wanna say something. So when we went out to the market for money, the 10-year had gone up to like 2.4. The 10-year is now 1.87. We went out to the market, we were good stewards, and went out to the market when they told us that they thought it might be closing. And we went out, and the 10-year is probably falling 40, 50 basis points since we went to market. The 10-year today is 1.87. When we went for this money, it was probably 2.4 because we thought it was going to close in January or December. They wanted to close it by the end of the year, actually, Barry.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
exactly. That's exactly right. And believe me, I wish maybe we had waited a little bit, but, you know, we were told this is when it's closing, and we did the right thing by preparing and getting our ducks in order and going out to the market.
So the seller said, okay, you're not gonna make this from there, we'll push it out to April 1st.
Trust me, TPL had to put up, not that it affects this closing, but TPL had to put up additional funds, and they didn't want it to go any later. So they have additional money at risk right now, should the deal fall apart, which, you know, it's not going to, but they have additional funds at risk.
So we're just appropriating the money, it has to go to the town meeting.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When will the town meeting be on this one?
Don't know.
But can you close on it prior to the town meeting?
We're gonna, yes, we can. I mean, this is an authorization.
Right.
You know, we have to pay a certain amount of money.
Yep.
It would be an auditor black,
Yes,
An
they would give
auditor
us
blemish.
a check mark.
our new auditors.
Based on the vote reserve, I certainly don't want us to fail on that. so.
Right.
Right. Any other questions for Carl? Is there a motion to appropriate $86,616.71? Or is it 78?
It,
It's, the total extra authorization that we require is $78,372.
That-
We already have the 3 million is already authorized by the referendum. Yeah.
All the details are spelled out in that motion. so.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. You can just move that.
Yeah.
There's a motion, a second, any further
Who made the
discussion?
motion, excuse me, Barry?
John.
John?
John, and then Barry.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you on that.
Thank you.
Abstentions?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Change your title, Bob.
Yeah. Just a couple more things.
Yeah.
It's not 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I know.
Got a long way to go.
I'm gonna be out of here very early. So, during the budget, we talked about a bunch of things. One of the accounts that we have going on in this town right now is a capital non-recurring account. And we're building that account. And there was an article last week in Westbrook, in the Harbor News about Westbrook, approving capital spending. And they approved about $800,000 in capital spending for a variety of projects. Purchase a police car, state police radio system, $55,000, fire department command vehicle, emergency operations center, repairs at the firehouse. And they want to spend $700,000 to add emergency communication towers to eliminate geographic holes in radio communications coverage, which we did a long time ago. But they appropriated $800,000. And the idea with our capital non-recurring fund is that we're going to be in that position eventually to say, hey, we need $150,000 there, it'll have to go to town meeting,
Mhm.
but we'll have the money, and they're putting money into designated accounts. There's a roof that needs to be done, the Mulvey Center roof, I think that's their town. Is that
That's
their
their
town?
town
That's their
hall.
town
Yeah.
hall.
That seems like a new town hall to need a roof, but they're talking about putting $100,000 in that as a sinking fund almost. So in theory, we could take money from the capital non-recurring fund, the Board of Finance could, and create a sinking account. They can move money, you can move money from a undesignated fund to a designated fund. But the idea is to get to a point where we're going to be able to use cash reserves to pay for larger capital projects. And I just thought that was a good article, kind of instructional, as opposed to either taking money from surplus at the end of the year, if we have it, budget surplus, or from the undesignated fund, which we have it about, we're hoping to have at the end of this year, maybe closer to 8%, and build on that. That's an account we don't want to go to
Mhm.
necessarily. So that's why we're building the capital non-recurring account.
But wasn't the idea behind the capital non-recurring account to get away from the designated accounts?
Getting away from what?
Designated accounts?
Well, get away from some sinking funds, but you could take money from the capital non-recurring account and create a new sinking fund and
Right.
say, you know, you could do that, or, I mean, you could use it any way
Can
you
you
want, it just
reverse
has to go to town meeting.
Can you go from a sinking fund back into the other fund? Is that reversible?
I'd imagine it is if you go to town
Sure.
meeting, yeah. You go from a sinking fund. Anyway, let me, I wanna hand something out to you guys, something I said I would follow up on. we talked about the sinking fund for public works. And Larry talked about a $150,000 item, which is kind of what we're talking about here in the paper, but with this budget, there'd be $90,000 in the public works sinking fund. If you wanted to borrow money over 3 or 5 years, so assuming this budget goes through and that account stays as it is and has $90,000 in it. This year I put 50,000 in it, last year I put 40 in it, or we did. Let's say we keep it flat next year, but let's say you choose the 3-year option, pay 52 a year over the next 3 years. Even if you keep that 50 flat, next year you'd have 90,000 in it, the year after 140. So it would build even as you pay this back. So I'm just throwing this out to you for consideration, because Larry talked about the need for this item, and if your board determines there is that need, I'd imagine the interest rate may have even gone down from, and I went to First Niagara just because we've used them before, and she did this in 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be First Niagara, it could be any bank. But that's just throwing it out there for conversation purposes.
So you're saying we could get the equipment and pay $52,000 a year and still put $50,000 into that?
So should we have a budget where the Public Works Sinking Fund stays whole? On July 1, you'll have $90,000 in it.
Right.
If you chose one of these options and we're paying $50,000 over 3
You
years.
take it from there.
Take it from there.
Got it.
And you'd continually have 50 going in, so you'd still be building towards the next bigger purchase. So I just wanted to give that to you. I'm not asking for action, it's informational.
Okay.
Couple other small items. I had a conference call on energy bid today. We are actually going out to bid with Lime, Old Lime, and the school system over there to get more kilowatt hours and to get a better price. Because when you go out to bid market, it's good to have more kilowatt hours, you get a better price. So we're doing that May 6th. If anybody would like to see the bids come in, you're more than welcome to. We're doing that over in Old Lyme Town Hall.
Who are you doing that with?
I'm sorry?
You're doing it, us, Old Lyme, and
The school system, regional school system.
how about our school system?
They are on a contract. I think they're already tied in for next year. We're finishing a 3-year contract. So the broker happened to have these other clients, and I said I'd be more than willing to go in with them, to get a better price. Market, we're going to do this May 6th.
What's your expectations?
About 8 cents, hoping. Right now we're at 7 cents, to give you an idea. When we went out to bid last time, it was very cheap. Talked about the preserve already. We moved into a police department last Thursday at about 4 o'clock. We went out live, I think.
Went smooth or?
Excuse me?
Went smooth?
Yes, very smooth.
Still some items here and there, but operational and.
Thanks to a good dedicated team.
There you
Um,
go.
Again.
15th, the actual date was the 15th or? what was that?
16th.
On time, on budget. The brownfields, remember the brownfields grant for $155,000? We anticipate selecting a licensed environmental professional probably sometime in the next 6 weeks. We've pared it down to 4 that were state approved. Probably going to interview 2 or 3 of them. And they'll get working on that. We Went out to bid for trees. We took down a bunch of trees recently. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but trust me, we have a very long dead tree list. And I get a lot of calls about trees. And you're gonna see a lot of tree trimming and tree removal going on in town. Between Lucas Tree and Asplund, Eversource is being very aggressive with their trees. Dave, out your way, as I think I talked to you about it, down Schoolhouse Road, they're gonna do lots of tree trimming, not a lot of tree removal. On Ingham Hill Road, they wanna do some tree removal, and those are scenic roads.
Right.
So the planning commission, I have requested a public hearing on that. Well,
Yeah.
really have to.
Yeah. One way to make a good point there is every time a tree comes down anywhere on the road, nobody can get home and nobody can go back again. And we have panicky parents.
Attitudes have changed on trees.
I hope so,
yeah,
yeah.
big
A lot
time.
of them have suffered, so
And-
I think it should be.
And this is maintenance. I mean,
Yeah.
these trees haven't been maintained.
Oh, I know.
It is truly maintenance. And I'll tell you, I remember, and I was talking to Julie Pendleton about this. She lives out that way, out at Schoolhouse. I think during Sandy, I'd say 50% of the calls came off Schoolhouse Road. So I think people are gonna be actually pretty happy. And while it's painful every year, thank you for your work during the budget process. It is painful, and everybody's not always happy. And Bob and I were just talking about this the other day. The charter revision that we made, and now this is the second year of the charter revision process, where there's an annual budget meeting on the first Monday in May, and you guys have to have your work done 2 weeks before that. I believe it's a better process. And that was a process that I really wanted to change based on my experience being on the Board of Finance for 11 or 12 years. I think getting the budget on March 1 and knowing what your target date is a doable process, and I think it's served us well. That's what I would say. That's my 2 cents on that. That's all I got.
Is that it? Any questions for Carl?
Carl, what about we talked one time about the solar panels on different town facilities. Anybody looking into that still, or?
Yeah, the problem with that, and everybody in this room knows it, is you have to sign a power purchase agreement for 20 years.
Okay.
And I don't know that I'm completely sold on that for a public building, you know, when I'm making that decision.
Okay. And the next question is, do you anticipate a significant amount of money being not collected because if we have appeals on the tax assessments and stuff?
I'll have a better number for you. I'll tell you what, Tom, either at the next meeting or a meeting after that, we'll show you what the estimated grand list was, and then I'll show you what the new number is, and you'll see that number. That's the best way for me to give you that answer. But there will be adjustments. There just are. We still have one large commercial appeal. It's public, so I don't, it's CVS, I've told you about it. And we're not close, and we have a pretrial coming up on that. I have it in my calendar, I forget what day it is, it's in May. We just came to an agreement with Brewers Marina, I think a very reasonable one, but we had to spend $15,000 to get an appraisal. We did. We had to come up with an appraisal. And we settled within our range, not their range, but we did come down a little bit. We are, it's not an inexpensive process. And when you look at Bob's monthly report and you see Mike Cronin's legal line item at 100% expended, it's because he spent about 150 hours this year on appeals. So
Still an investment,
What?
still a good investment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a process, you know, it just is, and it's not always pretty. But I told you, I think I mentioned it, I won't bore you with, you know, we pay lawyers by the hour, but there's lawyers out there on the plaintiff side taking it on contingency, which there's some legislation up there saying, you know what, they have to have skin in the game. You can't just have a contingency lawyer saying, hey, if I get you a reduction, I'll get paid, and if I don't get paid. Meanwhile, the town is paying a lawyer by the hour, and, you know, we're paying at a very reasonable rate, but I'm sure some towns are paying a lot more than we are. So, there is some restriction on that. I shouldn't say but there is a restriction on that, but there should be more of a restriction on that. I think it shouldn't be allowed on a contingency basis at all. That's what I think, but probably a longer answer than you wanted, but.
Do you have the authority, or between you and the treasurer and Barry, our tax collector, where can you make a settlement without litigation?
So what I tell people, it's a great question. So what I tell people, I sound like the chief, that's a great question.
At least you're finally picking up on stuff.
So when
13 years.
I've had this discussion with a homeowner just recently who got a decision with no change. And they were really, really unhappy. And I said, file an appeal. I'm sorry to tell you this, you have to file an appeal. And once you file an appeal, that's when I get involved and I can then reach a settlement with you based on reason. But until that point, I don't have any authority to intervene. And that's unfortunate, but that's part of the process. But I am the one who makes the call. Like, I'll make the call based on good advice, but Mike Cronin and our the appraiser that we hire will say, you know, we're back and forth on this. This is what we want, this is what they want. This is probably the best number you're gonna get. What do you say? And if I agree, you know. So I do make the call on a lot
So
of
you or
these.
your whole board?
I take advice, but it's actually my call. Yeah, no, not the board.
Okay.
Yeah. So I make a lot of those calls, but we've settled a lot of
The
it.
tax collector and the treasurer have no.
Yeah, it's just the assessor, and tax collector has nothing to do with it. He collects less money, that's all he has to do with it.
Very good.
But I'll get you, we'll get you the grand list before and the grand list now. And that might give you an idea as to, Enterprise also took back 20% of their cars. They re-registered them, but it's not a huge number. But that'll play in too. I'm driving right now a rented car. I was telling Brett, I'm driving a car that is a rental car from Enterprise with Virginia license plates.
Undercover.
Yeah, but I you know,
I just thought you were
But it
moving
was-
down to avoid taxes.
but it was a car here in Old Saybrook, you know, I don't know, I don't get it, but
Thank you.
thank
Any other
you.
questions for Carl? All right, thank you, Carl. My only comment is I too would like to thank everyone for the work they put in on the budget, the extra meetings we had, the hours we spent. You know, I think people know we have special meetings and it's additional hours, but I don't think people really realize the amount of time we put in prior to and after meetings. So I do thank you for your work and your insight and your comments. I know it was a lot of work. Town meeting is May 4th, Monday, May 4th, 7 PM.
Yeah, and I'll be having a call, doing a special Board of Selectmen meeting Thursday that will set the call of the annual budget meeting,
Budget meeting,
which will automatically go to referendum,
right.
automatically. So there'll be no business at that meeting.
What's the date of that special meeting?
It's, the annual budget meeting is May 4th.
I got that. You said you were having.
The Board of Selectmen will have a special meeting Thursday.
April 30th.
I'm sorry?
April 30th, I believe.
Okay.
That is a Thursday.
This Thursday or next
A week from.
No, the Board of Selectmen is going to have a special meeting this Thursday to set the call
So that's
of the
23rd.
annual budget meeting, I'm sorry if I didn't, for, Monday,
It's
the 4th.
Thursday.
23rd.
23rd.
Whatever Thursday is, I'm not sure, yeah.
2020.
Yes, third. And we will set the call for the May 4th, May 12th, May 4th town meeting, May 4th, May 12th referendum.
Is it gonna be afternoon or evening meeting cutoff?
That will be a 3:30 meeting, special meeting. It might be a one-item agenda, I'm not sure yet.
Is your town meeting on the 4th going to be at the middle school?
Yeah, it's, the May 4th meeting is at the middle school, and the referendum is 12 to 8 at the high school.
Okay.
And our next meeting is May 5th. Right here.
Same time, same
7
place.
o'clock.
And then you will need to have a meeting the night of May 12th. So people should know that.
Immediately following the referendum.
Yes.
Good point.
Hey, 12th,
12th.
that's why you set the
It's
note.
about a 5
That's where he
minute-
sets the
We're
mill
gonna
rate,
break.
right?
Well, that's the
We have to
rate.
start
We
budget
we can have a break right
Okay.
after that.
Yep.
May 12th is a Tuesday.
All right.
That's all I got. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Opposed?